Okay, the mining tax went through this week, or through the House of Representatives. Very important to the budget, obviously, Karen. How important, how significant, though, politically, given that Julie Gillard started the year by saying this would be the year of delivery? Well,
hugely significant. It comes back to that idea of confidence and being able to present as a government that can deliver, even if it's not fully delivered yet. And that is an interesting question. I mean, the Greens have reserved their right to not support it in the Senate. I'm told that that's because they felt that there should have been greater scrutiny, a greater period of scrutiny, but the government insisted on that vote being quick. So they still want gold to be included in the tax. They still have concerns about the superannuation arrangements. They really want to push for changes at the edges, and they aren't guaranteeing support in the Senate. So she's bought herself an end of year tied up with a bow, but I think we will see some revisiting of it in the new year.
Dennis?
Yeah. I think it was in many ways a bigger legislative achievement for the government than getting the carbon scheme through. This was what the government sees as, you know, something that they had to really fight for. The carbon scheme, in the end, it was difficult through the multi-party process, but getting it through the Parliament wasn't that difficult because the deal was done before. This one, the deal actually went and wasn't sealed until about 4 or 5 hours before the vote was taken.
When the secret deal was done with the Greens, of course, and that was the one that sort of took a bit of shine off the ball in the end because it gave the coalition something to work with. But I thought Kadelka did a nice job with this in the Australian, where he said, come on, the suspense is killing me. Tell me about the secret deal. And she said, well, we're deferring our phase down of interest withholding tax paid by financial institutions for a year, which ought to see, and then blah, blah, and then, of course, that...
Shut everybody up.
The other thing
keep your secrets to yourself.
Yeah, the other thing that took the shine off the mining tax, though, was the analysis that showed it was actually going to cost the budget more than it was going to raise. I mean, one highly respected economics writer, Alan Kohler, wrote on the drum that it was a debacle and a joke, and it's probably going to cost the budget $1.7 billion. Well, OK, good, tick, mining tax through, but
because
look at the quality of the legislation.
Spending more of the proceeds than what they'll actually receive. That's, that's the point.
It's costing them more.
Well, and they're buying a big fight with the states as well, so that's
collecting.
Unresolved.
So, you know, OK, get things introduced, but, you know, try and make sure that they are good policies?
Yeah, the government seems sort of, you know, quite a bit strangely relaxed about all that. They say, look, you know, those things will sort themselves out as the tax beds down and as time goes on. I mean, we'll see, of course, but you're right, the overwhelming weight of analysis is that it's not the good-looking tax that they make it out to be.
Yeah.
Anthony Albanese certainly got wound up when they had the first censure motion after the mining tax. Here's part of what he had to say.
This is a person who was saying no in his sleep, because we know that's the case, Mr Speaker, because we saw it last night. We saw it last night. There he was, asleep on the front bench. He only woke up to say no. No. It was unbelievable, Mr Speaker. For 2.5 hours, that's what we saw last night. This is someone who thinks that he'll sleepwalk into office, Mr Speaker.
One of his better performances, I thought.
Oh, we had 2 good performances this week, that one and Christopher Pine's 9 nominations. Oscar-winning performance was also excellent.
That was, I think, Anthony Albanese's best that I've seen since he did a speech against John Howard about a decade ago, or maybe a bit more, which was also quite a withering attack. It reminded me of Mick Young. I haven't seen anything quite that effective in the Parliament since Mick Young was around.
But here's the real problem, though, with the mining tax. I think the ongoing problem, as articulated by Colin Barnett and Barry O'Farrell.
Those minerals belong to the people of Western Australia, and the people of Western Australia, through their government, will determine the price at which we sell those minerals. And there is no agreement, no understanding with Wayne Swan or the Commonwealth Government. One of the jobs of a Prime Minister is to defend the Australian Constitution and to maintain cohesion within the Australian Constitution. The Prime Minister, Julia Gillard, is not doing that. She threatens the very fabric of cooperation in our federation.
Labor continues to rob New South Wales, the nation's largest state, of its vital infrastructure funds. The money being threatened by the Prime Minister, the money being threatened by the Federal Treasurer, is money that belongs to the people of New South Wales. Let me make one thing clear, New South Wales does not intend to back down.
Now, Nikki, the government's been doing deals all over the place. Maybe that's one area where they should have done a deal before they stitched it all up.
Definitely. There didn't seem to have been any attempt at all to negotiate with the states on this issue. And one of the deep flaws of the mining tax that was agreed to before the election was that they would reimburse all royalties. That was a big mistake on the government's part. And I think if they'd paid a bit more attention to the states, tried to schmooze them a bit and buy them off a bit, they might have had a better outcome. Well, so they're reaping now what they sowed back then.
And they've now agreed as one of the extra conditions that the independents put forward to put the royalties issue before the GST inquiry. I mean, the states like particularly New South Wales but also Western Australia are very upset already about the distribution of GST funds. They feel like they're getting ripped off. If they now feel like they're also going to be extra penalised for royalty payments, they'll be enraged, and you can see that from Colin Barnett already.
Yeah, I think if Nick Greiner and John Brumby can sort this out, though, they'll deserve a dozen Orders of Australia between them.